have entered the PM Entertainment Podcast.
Well, hello and welcome to part 2 of our Rick Pepin celebration. And this is a very special episode because we're not reviewing any films on this episode. I mean, this is technically like episode 16 part 2, but just to keep it simple on the podcast platforms, it's going to be episode 17. And we are just doing interviews. We have interviews with the P and the M of PM. We have the only interview we ever got with Rick Pepin, sadly, and it was way back in January. It was one of the first interviews we did. It really kicked this whole thing off. Rick was the one who gave me Joseph's number, and then Joseph was able to get me Spiro Rosardis' number and Ken Blakey's number, and it kind of all steamrolled from there. So Rick really kicked this whole thing off. But I conducted an interview with him back in January when really I had seen, about 20 or 30 PM films, but I didn't know all the stuff that I know now about behind the scenes at PM and all the players involved and all that kind of stuff. So it's not going to be necessarily the most informative interview that I would give now. Like if I had the opportunity to speak to Rick a second time, obviously there's a lot more things I would ask him about, but we only got this one opportunity and I'm thankful that we even got that. It's just absolutely fantastic. And I thought that as a celebration of him and a memorial of him, I would present the interview in full. So some of these clips have been heard on some of the other episodes, but this is the full interview, including some of our casual chats that aren't just questions and things. So I thought that would be a great tribute. And then I was able to speak to Joseph right before Rick's memorial, and we had a lovely long conversation, and I'm presenting most of that here today. So it's about an hour long. So the two interviews together make basically a full episode. So this is part 2 of our Rick Pepin celebration. We've got Rick, we've got Joseph, and Joseph especially just tells some incredible stories, tells some great jokes, talks about the PM Entertainment cast and crew and everything. And it's just a really heartfelt conversation. And obviously he was getting ready to go to the memorial, so it was all fresh in his head. So hopefully you enjoy these 2 interviews, and then on episode 18, we'll be back to reviewing the films. Thanks so much for listening, and all the best.
How you doing?
I'm very good, sir. How are you?
Pretty good. We just got in from shoveling some snow, so that's exciting.
Okay. Yeah, no, we had a lot of snow out. I'm out in Connecticut. We had a lot of snow here. A few days back, and we're meant to get more on Wednesday. So we're only getting up to about 35 degrees the next 2 days. So I'm hoping some of the former snow will melt so that when the new stuff comes, it's not a nightmare. But
okay, that's similar to us. We're up in like Arrowhead, so it doesn't get very cold, but it does snow occasionally. It's been dry though this year, very dry.
Yeah, well, it's been ridiculous. What with the absolute tragic fires in California and then the snow in the Gulf. It's been a weird season for everybody. How's your daughter doing, by the way?
Yeah, she's good. She's not in her house yet. They're getting it cleaned this weekend. It was just a lot of soot and a lot of air quality issues, and I think it's going to take them 7 days to clean it, to filter the air, and then she'll be able to go back to her house, which is great. She's staying with a friend now in Pasadena. So they were up here for a while, and then they went back there, but they're ready to go home. They're so ready.
No, I'm sure, and no, the rest of us are just watching that situation in California with sending what we can send and do what we can do. But what an absolute tragedy, and especially for the city that obviously was the business you were in for years and years and years. You must know so many people in that area.
Yeah, there's been a few that have, and my daughter has 3 friends that lost their homes. So it's and I had mentioned their school burned down, the girls' school, and their club burned down. So that's all in Altadena.
Oh my goodness!
And
such tragedy. Well, I hope
they're adjusting their lives.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. The only thing I comes close is we have my sister-in-law was in Asheville during that horrendous storm.
Oh, the flooding?
Yeah, and the flooding, and you know, roads washed away and homes washed away, and you know, I know it's the other extreme, but it's the closest that we've come as a family to having to deal with anything remotely like that. So yeah, it's
yeah, well,
tragedy all around.
I guess no matter where we live, because we're talking about that too. We could really live anywhere, but you know, when it doesn't burn, California is pretty nice.
Yes, no, it is. It's lovely. I used to, when I first lived in the States, and I've been out here 17 years, but when I first moved to the country, I was actually in Vegas, believe it or not. That'll do.
Okay.
That'll do a number on you moving from London to Vegas.
Yeah.
Just couldn't get two more different cities. But I visited California extensively while I'm there. While I was there, and have also done trade shows and things in San Francisco and Los Angeles. So I visited the area quite a lot, and we have good friends out there as well, my wife and I. So. No, it's a beautiful state, and Los Angeles especially if you're a film fan or a film writer or whatever. Yeah. It's just every corner is yet another film set and or iconic location. So yeah, that's wonderful.
Yeah, I actually originally moved here from Canada, so it was a bit of a culture shock for me too. You know.
Oh yeah, whereabouts in Canada are you from?
Windsor, Ontario.
Oh, wonderful! Yeah, I have my whole mum's cousin's side of the family is all in Ontario. We've got some in Niagara-on-the-Lake and some in Toronto at the moment. So,
oh, okay.
Yeah, another wonderful part of the world. I love visiting. Ontario. So, thank you ever so much for agreeing to do this interview. As I said, we've been a long-time fan of PM Entertainment Films here at the After Movie Diner website and podcast. And it has long been kind of a fascination and or dream as I saw those documentaries coming out a few years back about Cannon, as well as a couple of other documentaries that had sort of been made about the action boom in the 80s and 90s that kind of came out on streaming. And I was like, why is no one mentioning what I think is the best production company that put out certainly some of my favorite action films of all time. I have a extensive VHS and DVD collection of your films. So, and it was always my dream. I was like, well, maybe it's me that does it then. Maybe it's me who rounds people up and tries to talk about PM Entertainment. So this is my first steps to doing that. And we've spoken to, as I say, we've spoken to Cynthia Rothrock and Don the Dragon Wilson and some other actors who have appeared in your films in the past, not specifically about your movies, but about their careers. But it would be nice to sort of revisit with them about their contribution to your production company specifically. So that's our hope, is after we've spoken to yourself and Joseph, is to move on and try and get some of the cast and some of the stunt people and things like that. I think that would be what the audience is looking forward to and looking for, I think. So very excited.
Well, I think you can't go wrong with Don. He was like one of the best guys I've worked with. He was just so great to work with. He made his films a lot easier, because he was he was just a nice guy, a great guy. So
yeah, I've had the pleasure of meeting him a couple of times, and he just seems that way. He just seems down to earth.
Yeah,
he seems very nice. There's a lot of ego, which I'm sure you've come across in the action world. Sometimes behind the scenes, you hear stories.
Yeah.
Don doesn't seem to. Don and Cynthia don't seem to have that in the same way.
Yeah, I think they both had the same work ethic, and Don, he would the 12, 15 hours. What else can we do? What else can we get done? He was really good.
Yeah,
so it was a joy to work with him.
And of course, he came from the Roger Corman school, which, of course, I think probably sets anyone up for success, because you can't complain if you're working for Roger. You just have to kind of head down and get it done, right?
Yeah.
So, Richard or Rick, how do you prefer to be addressed?
Rick.
Rick?
Rick is fine, yeah.
Excellent. So, Rick, obviously came from Canada, came from Ontario. What initially sparked your interest in filmmaking, and how did you first get involved in any aspect of the entertainment industry?
Well, it was never really a target of mine. I was working I was very interested in photography, So I was working doing weddings and kids' photos and stuff like that in Canada. And I always was interested in the States. I always wanted to move. I just felt, I guess I felt more American than I felt Canadian, but, being on the border there. And my cousin opened up a film lab in Los Angeles. And one summer when I went to visit him, he offered me a job. So I went back in a couple of months, and I was working in his lab and processing film, and again, there wasn't any target. It just sort of, I fell into it, and I was doing a little bit of photography on the side, which was what I really wanted to do. So, and that sort of morphed into, I left him after a year, and I met a couple of guys. We started our own lab, and when we started that lab, I volunteered to do a lot of the assembly of the films and just editing, minor editing. And I got used to handling film, and that was sort of the start of it. So I was just doing the lab work, but I volunteered to do all the any editorial that had to be done, anything of cutting films together. That's what I like to do.
Yeah. And what was some of sort of the biggest challenges you faced, I guess, then transitioning from the lab and from sort of being behind the scenes to kind of setting up, both City Lights and then ultimately PM? What was the transition like? What were the challenges you faced there?
Well, I went out on my own, and I opened up a little editing company, and I started investing in some equipment. I got 16 millimeter equipment. I got a flatbed editor, and then I was actually shooting high school and college football games when they used film.
Yeah.
Before video, so I did that to help pay for the equipment, and the guy I was working with had a connection to the U.S. Olympic swim team, and he asked me if I'd be interested in helping him put together some training films. And I said yes, of course. And so what we did is we used to we'd go before the Olympics, and we'd film the whole team. And then whoever won gold, we put together in a small training film. And I wasn't getting paid for it, but I kept the rights to sell it, to sell them. And at that time, everybody was happy to be on film. All these swimmers, they were very happy.
Yeah.
And then I put together whoever won the gold medals, and the Olympic coach would come in. He would do a narration and why this guy's a great swimmer, and then I put it together. I'd make Super 8 copies, and I sold them to high school and college. That kept me in the film business because it was a steady source of income. And we did that for 3 Olympics, I think, or 4. I'm not quite sure.
Yeah. And was that sort of shipping out training films and things to sort of schools and colleges all over the country, or predominantly sort of ones you had connections with in California?
No, all over the country. We put ads in swim magazines, and one of the guys who started with us in City Lights was a manufacturer of swim equipment, and so he had an in with these guys. And at the time there was no videotape, so everything was on 16 millimeter or Super 8. But what it did teach me was how to put everything together, and because I mix the sound myself, I do everything myself.
Yeah. Of course. And how did you and Joseph Merhi first meet? And what do you think made that partnership so successful?
Well, Joe's probably the best partner I've ever had. He was very reliable, very, we never had a written agreement, so it just worked. But he was trying to get into the film business. He had a pizza restaurant in Las Vegas, and he was getting ready to shoot a film that he wrote. And through a mutual friend, I met him, and he wanted somebody to shoot second camera. And I found out later that it was a bad backup, really, because the cinematography he had, he wasn't sure he could get along with him. And that's kind of how it started. And I went to Las Vegas, and I helped him shoot, and he ended up firing the director of photography, and then I took over. So that was really only the second film that I ever shot. So.
And what was that film ever released? What kind of film was that?
It was a comedy. It's called Dumb Luck in Vegas, and it was part of City Lights.
Right.
It ended up, we folded it into City Lights.
Okay.
During the process, I helped them with post a lot, and because I had an editing flatbed table, and we shot it in 16.
Nice.
So.
Yeah, the only City Lights
so
film I think I have is Mayhem. I was able to track down Mayhem on VHS. I think that's the only City Lights one I have currently. But
and that's our first film that we did together.
Right. Yeah, that was sort of the calling card that led to everything else, right?
Right, exactly. That was shot really cheap. I think we shot it in 8-9 days for like $50,000.
Yeah. What? So. It's fantastic. And you were trying, you did, I believe you did some comedy, you did some, I think, Mayhem is sort of a horror film to some extent.
I know.
There's some horror elements,
film.
thriller elements in it.
Yeah.
But what sort of moved you towards action? And were you aware of sort of the Canon model that I think by this point, sort of the late 80s was already, I think, showing some cracks in the way they were doing things. But were you aware of that? And did you take any kind of lessons from that, I guess, to do it differently? Or were you just strictly on your own path?
Well, not specifically Canon, but I mean, in those days, you used to shoot a film and you almost have to open it theatrically. And that's kind of what the standard was for everybody. I'll do this film, I'll get it into 1 or 2 theaters, and then it'll grow from there. And the direct-to-video was more, the X-rated guys were going direct-to-video.
Right.
And I knew a guy who was doing that, who was doing the X-rated stuff, and I'd go into his warehouse, and I just saw all these videotapes that he was selling for like $70, and he wasn't paying anything to have them produced. So I just thought it was a good business model that go direct to video, not bother trying to get it, because anytime we had no control if we gave it to somebody to exhibit in a theater. If we went direct to video, we could sell them directly to the stores.
Right.
So that was a big advantage for us.
Yeah, which was a little more like the kind of
through it third hand.
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
No, I was going to say it's a little more like the Charles Band model in that regard. I know some of Charles Band's stuff went theatrical, but in general, once he moved over to Full Moon, I think it was strictly straight to video. And as you say, you had companies that owned, I think I'm right in saying that most of the studios and or companies adjacent to the studios owned the theatrical experience. So like you say, you kind of lost control if you went through there.
Completely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So from the get-go then, City Lights, and obviously then PM Entertainment, but City Lights from the get-go was a straight-to-video model. It
was always that way. We just didn't bother. Again, I think because Joe and I just both didn't want it to go through other hands, Every time it goes through somebody's hands, we lose money. So.
Yeah.
And these were pretty tight budgets and,
Yeah, I mean, it's what you see still now in the indie world, in the indie film world. Unless you're doing Vimeo or YouTube, pay-to-play kind of deals, most of the time people are releasing them small batches on DVDs and finding little indie distributors to sell them through. That's really what's still happening today because, the cinemas and the theaters have become so monolithically out of reach for most indie filmmakers these days. So what do you think some of the key differences in your creative styles between you and Joseph, and were there any, but also how did you kind of complement each other?
Well, kind of the way it started, he would write and direct, and I would shoot and edit. So while I'm editing film number 1, he was writing film number 2. And then when I finished that, we just jump in and shoot it. So for the first few years, that was kind of the way it was handled. He would write it and direct it, of course, and then I would shoot it, and I'd put it together. And we just went from one film to another. And in the meantime, we were getting involved with the trade shows and stuff, selling tapes. I think a lot of the independent video stores at that time were not getting a lot of studio pictures, so they were looking for things to put on the shelf.
Yeah.
And and that was lucky for us because it was pretty easy to sell. We'd go to shows and we would actually physically sell the tapes. We weren't supposed to, but we didn't know any better. And we would sell them to the store owners directly. So it was pretty good. It was, sometimes it helps not to know things, you know?
Yeah. Oh, and did you feel that between you and Joseph, that's kind of what was happening in your partnership, that you were sort of both learning together? So you were sort of finding where you both fit and where your strengths were?
Yes. And we both learned special effects and action stuff, you know, from ground zero, because we didn't know. We didn't know how squibs work. We didn't know how anything worked. So everything was a learning process, but, and we got pretty good at it.
Yeah. Oh, very good. You became phenomenal at it. I mean, the stuntmen alone and the pyrotechnics companies that have worked with you have gone on to, you know, be huge Hollywood players. So you paved the way for so much, which I think is another reason why shining a light on PM Entertainment is so important. Yeah. So do you have a sort of memory then with Joseph in any of the 15 years that you worked together? Do you have a specific memory that would kind of encapsulate your dynamic as partners, like the way you worked on set or the way you worked behind the scenes, making deals or writing scripts or hiring cast or anything like that? Is there sort of either a story, an anecdote, or a character trait you could discuss that kind of would hone in on that?
Well, again, I think we trusted each other explicitly. So, you know, if we decided on a film, and that was one of the things I liked the most, that we had complete control over everything. So if we decided on a film, we can go forward with it. And you know, that was the things I missed when we sold the company, just having that complete control. Yeah. You know, like we're gonna cut the shoot a little bit, or I'm not going to shoot this, or, you know, it was nice having complete control. But yeah, I just, Joe would bring in ideas. I mean, we'd sit and talk about ideas and then, you know, decide how to handle it. At the beginning, we were both involved in the same productions. You know, then we started to separate a little bit. I think, you know, when we were at our peak, we were sort of leapfrogging each other. I had my own crew and he had his basic crew. And, you know, I'm prepping film number one. He's writing film number two, and then, you know, I'd shoot, and then he'd start. It was almost a monthly thing. At one point, we were doing a film a month almost, you know, with leapfrogging, and I would say I probably had the best job in the world for about 10 years. You know, just doing this, just figuring out what to shoot.
Yeah, well, because that's the other difference, I guess, is that you guys sort of went out and got your hands dirty. Not that other production companies you could mention didn't occasionally direct a film, right. You know. But PM Entertainment is kind of solidified by the fact that, you know, you and Joseph to some extent did the bulk of your output. And yes, you had other, like Richard Munchkin, who I've spoken to before, and things, who came on to direct. And I also want to talk in a bit about some of the actors you got who also ended up directing films. But in general, you and Joseph took the lion's share of, and considering the rate of your output, it's very impressive.
Yeah, and I think even when we had other people filming, I'd make sure I showed up, I see what's going on, you know, and Joe would also. And even though we weren't directing or shooting it, we'd want to get a feel for the set, how it's going, you know.
Of course.
And of course, I look at dailies every day. So, you know, but, you know, we kept pretty good control of things, you know.
And did you ever think over sort of standing back, did you ever think that, or how much did you, I guess, craft or hone kind of what would become known as sort of the PM Entertainment look, or just the way the films run, the length that the films are? They're all decently, like, you know, 90 minutes, most of them. Obviously you have that kind of every 6 to 7 minutes, let's have something happen kind of philosophy that I think Corman and others have had as well. But is there something that, outside of just you being so involved and Joseph being so involved, was there something else that you felt defined, like the PM Entertainment look or the PM Entertainment motto or something?
You know, I'm not sure it was a specific look. We were always open to anything. You know, when other directors of photography would come in, I was open to anything. And it was like that with actors too. I mean, we like with Wings Hauser. I wanted him to make his movie, but I shot his movies because we were a little worried about his drinking and stuff. And
Right.
But I was on set all the time, and I shot him. But I kind of let him do what he wanted to do, unless it was really crazy. But I had very few issues with him.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm, aside from being a PM Entertainment fan, I'm a huge fan of Wings Hauser's straight to video output, and I'm sort of aware of who he was a little bit behind the scenes, but mainly because some directors have spoken very highly of him, and other directors have. I think the guy who made The Wind, I'm trying to remember his name now, Nico Mastorakis, who made a series of low-budget films in the 80s and 90s, but worked with Hauser on The Wind and Nightmare at Noon. Had not great things to say about him, but other people have said some fantastic things about him. And I'm a huge fan of what seems to be his somewhat unpredictable but kind of wild improv style. I mean, yes, obviously there are lines written for him and there is a script, but he also seems to be very good at taking that character and then sort of talking and or acting or even dropping little things in within that character. Is that something you found working with him?
Yeah. And again, I would let him do that. I used to tell people when they came in, like PMs could give you this box and an X amount of money. The money would always change. Some of them were $500,000, some of them were, one. But I said, in this box, you can move the money around. You can do things. But I said, you can't get out of this box. And the box is like Corman. I mean, we had an opening action scene, a closing action scene, and it was every 10 minutes. Something has to happen. Something has to happen. So as long as you stayed in that box, you could kind of do what you want, because, it seemed to work for us. It seemed to work.
Definitely. And I mean, I've watched, I think, all of the Wings Hauser ones and everything but the big fall that C. Thomas Howell did for you. And what's interesting is they seem to be leaning into a lot of that film noir vibe. I mean, obviously with the sort of neon-drenched 80s and 90s sort of Los Angeles cinematography and sometimes Las Vegas cinematography, but it's the beats of the film outside of the action tend to be fairly kind of film noirish. Is that something they both spoke to you about, or is that something you guys brought to the table and said, hey, what can you actors do with this?
I think it was more Wings, and I went along with it. I was fine with it. I love film noir, so I said let's do it. And one of the things at the very beginning, Joe and I, when we went to the foreign markets, they just liked seeing shots of Los Angeles.
Yeah.
So we made sure we were on the streets all the time, and that was kind of, I'm not sure it's the same now, but I think in the 80s and 90s they were really looking for seeing the city, and we shot everywhere in LA. So we gave them that. That was another staple that we really had to be down in Hollywood. We had to be downtown LA. We need to show them the city. So, and that was.
No, I agree, and I think as someone who was raised in the UK but was sort of steeped very early in Americana, whether it was the TV shows we were seeing, whether it was Hemingway books and Bukowski books and other things we were reading, whatever it was, we loved it. I always equate it with a songwriter who mentions an obscure street name or a section of downtown city or something in a song. It's evocative. You suddenly go, wait, where's that? How do I get there? Whereas nowadays, with everything being homogenized and sort of shot in either Canada or Georgia, it seems, and everything is kind of just shot as the action is happening and follow the action and don't care where the action's taking place and don't really care like where all this fits in. I think the appeal and the thrill, certainly for myself, but I think for other film fans, going back to sort of the 70s, 80s, and 90s, because once you get the indies of the 70s, you have them filming more on location. Like you think of all the, whether it's the Scorsese films, the Coppola films, or the Hopper films, or whatever, they're all shooting on location, and it's the location that's sort of informing a lot of the action that's happening. But even as you move into the 80s and 90s, there was no creating something on a green screen. You had to, if you wanted to shoot something in the jungle, you had to go to the jungle. If you wanted to shoot something in downtown LA, you had to block off streets and things. So talk about that. Then talk about the location shooting, the obviously the issues you might come across. How in those days was Los Angeles sort of much more open to stuff like that, and also getting away with, you know, ramping cars or shooting cars through fireballs and things like that in the middle of like a downtown metropolitan area. I would love some stories about that if there is some.
Well, to be honest, we when we first started, the easiest thing for us to shoot was live on the street at Hollywood Boulevard, and you know they're all pretty well lit.
Right.
And at the beginning, we didn't do permits. We just it was real guerrilla filmmaking, and like you know, in one of the shows, the actor's going to be on a bus, so I had a 16 millimeter camera. It was pretty small, and I would just hide in another jacket. We'd get on the bus and we'd shoot him riding around with the background Los Angeles until we got thrown off. Right. And that was kind of, we did a lot of that. I remember we shot a scene in front of a police station, you know, and I said, we're going to get in trouble here. We had a generator across the street. We had one or two lights. We rehearsed the scene like crazy in this RV, and then we just went and shot it within 15 minutes. But cops were going by and they didn't stop us, which I don't think we could do today. I don't think you could do that today.
Yeah, I think there was probably something, and you know, I hate to keep bring up negative things, but like something like 9/11 probably put the kibosh on so many things just because of the heightened security. I mean, I know having lived in New York for 13 years that, you know, you're not shooting anything in Times Square anymore unless you're, you know, Tom Cruise or someone. You know, it's just not possible. But I think of something that like James Glickenhaus did in Shakedown, where he's closing down 42nd Street and having Sam Elliott and Peter Weller on a bike and sidecar firing machine guns. Like, you're not doing no one's doing that in the Disney-owned New York these days. So
actually, the first 35 millimeter film we shot, which was Emperor of the Bronx, we did a bunch of shooting in New York, and again, I didn't get any permits. It was kind of guerrilla filmmaking for like 4 days. But we had the actors there. We had them walking in Times Square. You know, it was really pretty good. But we never got in trouble. No one ever asked us because you know we just set up and shot. And I don't know if we've ever got kicked out of any place. I don't think we ever did. We always had excuses. It's a student film, you know, we're doing this and be gone in 5 minutes, you know. Yeah. But it changed, you know, once you start doing the bigger stunts, everything has to be more controlled. So
of course.
So it did change for us.
Yeah. So you moved from obviously sort of the lower budget, more guerrilla style into slightly sort of bigger productions and then really big productions and things. So let's talk about some of that. Let's talk about obviously the car chase and explosions in PM films are sort of legendary. It's what everyone's kind of, with each new one that we put in or watch or find, we're looking to see, is it an explosion one or is it a story one? Because there's some that are story ones, which are fantastic. I think I just watched the Tracy Lord's Time to Die or whatever, which is more of a kind of emotional, character-driven kind of film noir kind of thing. There's not quite the action in that. But then, you know, I then watched Pure Danger, the C. Thomas Howell kind of film noir action movie, and that is insane with action that goes from kind of gunfights to foot chases to then car chases. So yeah, talk a little bit about that, and also about assembling together these great martial arts and stunt talents like Art Camacho and Cole McKay and Spiro Rosatos and Broadway Joe Murphy and people like that you ended up working with who, you know, as I say, have gone on to enormous success.
Yeah, the majority of these guys would start as day players for us, and we get to meet them, and you know, and you got a feel for how these people work just being on set with them, and that's kind of what we used. We just, well, this guy's good, let's try something with him, and we were willing to give people chances, like Cole McKay. You know, you can be the coordinator, you know, and then we let him direct a couple too, I think. Yeah. So. But it really was started, whoever we had on set, Joe and I would talk about them and say, this guy's pretty good. We should hire him again. Or if he came to us with a project, because we got a lot of that. I had this project, I've got the script, I've got this actor attached, and that's kind of what happened with these guys. And then the martial arts, Art Ons, and we used Art originally as a player, a day player, and then he was coordinating all the fights, and and then he directed for us, and he's still going too.
Yeah. And do you think that's why, as you were talking earlier about sort of that box, you kind of say, well, the budget is this, and within this budget you have to do this, but right. You can kind of move the money around, like you were explaining earlier. Did you find then that openness to some extent, certainly with your cast and crew, and allowing them those moments? I imagine there's got to be a time where Spiro Zardos came up, or someone came up and said, I'd really love to do this kind of stunt. I think Bill Lustig talks about him working on Maniac Cop 2 with him, and says, I really want to do a high fall while on fire. So the whole last sequence in Maniac Cop 2 entirely comes out because Spiro Zardos says, I really want to try and do this. Can we do this on this movie? Did you find that kind of stuff was happening with you, and actually that openness just led to better and better and bigger stunts and more excitement?
Yeah. I think that's the way it evolved. The guys would say, we can do this, and because again, after a while, it was a running joke that we have to flip a car sometimes on the show.
Yeah, you did. I mean, and you did, and it's
we got so
fantastic.
We actually got so good at it that it could be set up, and within a couple of hours that car was being flipped. And we were pretty good.
Oh, you were fantastic at it, and I was a kid raised on the A-Team and Knight Rider and shows like that, and. Did you find that shows like that were sort of doing it every week as well? Like every week the A-Team would flip a car, you know what I mean? It was sort of something that they did in every show. That TV was already a little bit like it is now, I guess, but that TV was already sort of doing what in the 70s, early 80s would have been filmic stunts, and now suddenly they're on TV. Was there an idea that you had to go even further? Or did that never even kind of come up?
We didn't compare it. It was mostly a lot of, probably over half of our income was foreign. So we listened to the buyers a lot. If they wanted more action, if they wanted more of this, we kind of listened to the buyers. And like when Terminator came out, they said, give us a Terminator-like film. And that's where Cybertracker came from.
Right.
So it was that, and we put our own stamp on it with our action. But and I think anything big with action, Joe and I would handle. I think when we started to give projects to other people, we didn't worry about the action as much because we weren't quite sure about anybody else doing the action without us supervising. It's just we were much more careful with the action stuff.
Yeah. Well, if you're going to be setting off an enormous explosion and sending a city bus hurtling through it, if I was producing that movie, I would want to be on set as well. That would be the thing I'd want to be there for. I'm like, I think it was, I've watched so many lately because I've been doing a few for the podcast, but it's either T-Force or it's Hologram Man that starts off with, I think there's an enormous explosion. It's the whole sequence with John Amos at the beginning. And there's a huge explosion. And I think through the explosion goes a city bus and either 2 or 3 flipped cars all at once. It's almost like you had got to the point where you were like, all right, let's see just exactly what we can do, And it's a thing of joy because that it's all practical. That
I think it was on Executive Target, but we hadn't flipped. We decided we're going to flip 4 cars.
Yeah.
And when you slow them down, if the cars don't hit the ramps exactly at the same time, it looks like they're a half a minute away.
Yeah.
They're. So we did flip them, and it wasn't perfect, but with the editing and stuff, we made it look pretty good. But that took a long time to set up because I think it was 4. It was 4 or 5. I'm not sure how many cars there were, but I think that was Coleman Paul McKay ran that, and again, I was there for that. I was shooting too.
Of course,
so.
you'd have to be. Why would you know? That's where I would
Executive
be.
Target was our most expensive film, and I wasn't shooting it.
Right.
But every weekend we'd close down streets in LA, and that's when I would just supervise the second unit. I would just go down and make sure everything's going correctly. But it was we closed down a lot of streets. I'm not sure you can do that like we did before. I don't know if they let you do that unless it's Tom Cruise.
Of course. And you had, I think the other very long freeway chase action sequence that I think of is Land of the Free, the Jeff Speakman, William Shatner film. You have, I think there's like a 10, 12-minute bus chase, car chase going on in that movie. And I feel, was that probably on like a strip of freeway that hadn't yet been finished that you sort of got for a day or two? Or
I think that was, I had a big freeway chase in a film. I think it was Silencers that I did with
The Silencers,
Jack Scalia.
yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I had a big freeway where he was hanging on the truck, and we closed down a section of the Long Beach Freeway, which was, I think, being renovated or under construction. I'm not sure. But we closed down, and then we just kept going back and forth on the same strip. Whether it was a mile, I'm not sure how much we cut back, but they probably used the same street because, again, they let us do it, so we did it. But we had some big explosions on that one too. We had a helicopter explosion. And, actually, we had a pipe ramp through the helicopter. That's what we did.
Yes,
Silencers.
And the Silencers. Yeah. Yes, that's fantastic. And we're big fans. I watched the Silencers recently as well. I collect them on VHS, so as I get them, I sort of watch them as quickly as I can. But I'm also friends with the guys who do the exploding helicopter. There's a whole blog that catalogs every film with an exploding helicopter in it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and they've been going for years, and I think they're up to like 940 something. I don't know what. And the Silencers is definitely one of those. But you bring up sort of Jack Scalia there. Obviously, anyone who's delved into PM Entertainment knows that you have sort of key cast members throughout each sort of, I would say, sort of 3 or 4 year section. So, we spoke about Wings Hauser. Obviously, he comes in and does some stuff at the end of the 80s, early 90s. He's really just up until, I think his last film is in like 91, maybe. I think that's The Killer's Edge is his last film with you guys. But sort of, and then you have, obviously, Don the Dragon Wilson comes back a lot, Tracy Lords, Gary Daniels we'll need to talk about. But talk about bringing these guys in and then kind of keeping them within the family, because certainly someone like Gary Daniels comes back, every year, every other year, does multiple films with you. Jack Scalia as well seems to do a lot of the sci-fi action. Was that, again, something that he came in with? Was that something you kind of thought he'd be perfect for? How did that work, and how did you nurture those relationships?
Well, he was recommended. I think it could have been our foreign seller that we had sales people, and they said, look at getting Jack Scalia, and they would say, let's do a sci-fi film, and so that would be the genesis for that. And then I think the first film with Jack was Silencers. I'm not sure what it was, but I really didn't know Jack that well, and so he was a good name for us. And I wasn't sure how it was going to work, but it actually worked out really well. He's a very professional guy, and I enjoyed working with him. I enjoyed it. I think we did 3. I think did we do 3? Silencers, Darkbreed, and what else did I do with Jack?
T-Force.
T-Force was the first one. There you go. Yeah. T-Force was the first one. Yeah.
Well, he was in Amore. So I don't know whether that was that strictly you guys, but Amore, which is released as PM Entertainment, but that might have just been one you were distributing. I don't know whether that was one you made yourself.
That's one we picked up, yeah.
Okay, so he was in that one, and then the ones that you guys made, T-Force was the first, and then he would go on and do the other 2, The Silencers and Dark Breed.
Yeah, I think after we did the first one, he was at a screening, and he was, I think, pleasantly surprised that we got as much out of, that our budget that we did, and then it opened the door to do a couple more. So
yeah, he seems to be having a lot of fun in T-Force. And it's certainly, I think,
he does.
He is having his performance in T-Force is fantastic. It's sort of one of the, as action-packed as T-Force is, and I think actually some of the robotic special effects are actually really good and well done. And I love the plot, the sort of, the good robot versus the bad robots kind of thing. And then the guy having to figure out being a partner to a robot and all that sort of stuff. All that stuff I absolutely love, but it's Scalia's performance that's really captaining the ship in terms of, the big plot points and things. And he is really genuinely fantastic in that, because he goes from sort of the blowhard naysayer to the softer, more traditional kind of partner, buddy cop stuff really well. I think, it's a great performance, I think, in that movie.
Yeah, no, and again, I enjoyed working with him. Very professional. So,
but
which is important,
How did someone like a Wings Hauser, or a C. Thomas Howell, or a Jeff Fahey, these guys who I would always say they're sort of actors first and maybe action stars second. They're not. They're certainly not martial artists, and they're certainly not. The likes of even a Jeff Wincott or a Gary Daniels, or sort of a sort of an action name, but they do sort of incredible action work with you guys. Was that, but they'd obviously all done stuff prior to PM Entertainment. Was that again sort of foreign money, sort of saying, "Hey, can we get some named stars that we may have seen in other stuff?" Or did those actors come to you and say, "Hey, we've always wanted to blow stuff up"? Like, how did that work?
I don't know. I don't think that ever happened. I think it was more of get this guy into your show, and like when we did Silencer, we had that big freeway chase, and Jack wanted to hang on the side of the tanker. So, we wired him up, and it was a little scary for me, having him hanging off the bottom of this tanker, but he wanted to do it, and of course he's all harnessed in, but these guys, Jack especially, liked to do the action. He liked to run. He liked to shoot the guns. The Wings, I'm not sure he was as excited about the action. I think he was more interested in his film, Yeah. But Jack, I remember, really liked the action. So
yeah, and you let Wings have a couple of sort of surprising endings. There's like one ending where he just flat out dies, and you're like, wait, what? That's the,
that's Living to Die.
Living to Die. Obviously, he gets in too deep with the mob, and it just ends up the way it ends up. And it's fantastic that you let something like that happen, because I think other studios would have gone, no, we have to have, a happy ending or whatever. And then there's, I think, The Art of Dying ends with him and Kathleen Kinmont. They're sort of having a moment in a doorway. And there's, you've got the usual kind of, Die Hard type thing of having ambulances and police and whatever on the street, because obviously they're clearing up the action scene. And out of nowhere, a guy rollerblades through the scene and wearing a purple thong and nothing else. Yeah. And I wonder, is that just LA at the time, and you just let that happen? Or did Wings go, I think it would be funny if? Like, how does something like that come about? Do you know, or do you remember? Or
I think it's unlikely it happened on its own. I think that may have been Wings. Yeah, because you're always careful, especially when we were doing that level of films. We always had security, and we always had, cops on set. So it's unlikely that would have happened, but it sounds like what Wings would want to do.
Good.
And I had no problem with it. I had no problem with it. So.
Oh, great. So, as I say, we already talked about sort of letting your cast write or direct. And obviously, earlier on, you worked with Lawrence Hilton Jacobs. Was he the first who directed for you?
He was.
Yeah.
Yeah, outside of Munch, I think he was the first actor we had directing for us. And I think he brought Jim Brown into that first show, too.
Yes.
They had Yeah, he was friends with Jim Brown. That may have been part of the process that, I can get Jim Brown. That's okay. Let's see. What can we do?
Yeah, and you kept bringing back the character of John Chance sort of comes back in several of those earlier movies.
Right.
Again, was that something that Lawrence was driving, or was that something where you thought, well, let's see if we can kind of make a franchise and see if that works? Like, were you trying your hand at franchises? Because actually, very few PM Entertainment films have sequels. A couple do, obviously, but like in general, you're not making 15 of a John Chance movie or 15 Rage films or whatever. You're making sort of that one and done kind of feel. But was there some thinking of like a franchise or something like that in those earlier films?
It wasn't direct. I mean, if the films did well, yes, we brought them back, and you could bring them back either as the same character or as we were doing a different film, but they were mostly sales driven. If they were happy, that's what we did. We wanted to keep those foreign buyers happy. That was kind of domestically we did okay, but most of our money was foreign.
Yeah,
most of our money, at least for the first few years.
And let's talk about Gary Daniels quickly, because of course we can't do PM Entertainment without talking about Gary Daniels. I think that especially the 3 R's that people talk about. I don't know if you know this, but like fans of your films talk about the 3 R's that he's in. Riot, Rage, and Recoil. Coil as sort of being quintessential titles. He's obviously...
Those were all Spiro, right? Those were all Spiro, I think.
I believe so. Yeah. And I think... but obviously Gary Daniels, I have a soft spot for him because he's a British martial artist, and I think we only have about 3 of those guys. 4 of them, I think, in total in film. But talk to me about Gary Daniels and having him in your film.
Well, again, he was a little bit like Don. He's very easy to work with and very professional, and he'd work hard. He'd work very hard, very, very hard. And it was when we were doing our martial arts films, when we started that process, but he was just good. He was just good, and he was in a bunch of our films. So, I don't know if there's anything in particular. The films were successful. He was very easy to work with, and had a pretty good name.
You got him from Britain. Obviously, Jeff Wincott is a fellow Canadian like yourself, who is fantastic. We love his films that you guys did with him, especially Last Man Standing, and obviously. You did one film with Cynthia Rothrock, who I'm just an enormous fan of. I'm so in awe of her body of work. Was there ever any talk about doing further films with Cynthia? I know that there was some deal with Stallone that fell through that I think made her not do a few movies for a while. But was there any talk about doing a second film with her?
There may have been some talk, but it wasn't. It never really got anywhere. Yeah, I know less about that one. I wasn't very involved in that one.
Okay.
We just okayed them, and
it has a great boat explosion at the end.
Boy, I forget. We did so much action. Somebody brings up something. I forgot we did that.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those great movie explosions where I think the boat barely grazes a rock, but the entire thing explodes, which is always, whenever something like that happens, you're a huge fan.
Okay, was that a helicopter shot that followed the boat in?
Yes, I believe so. It's right at the end of Guardian Angel. It's down at the rock because the guy she's protecting has sort of one of those big Malibu homes or whatever, and I think it's down on the rocks in the ocean at the end, if I'm remembering it rightly. It's been a while since I've seen
But there's an ocean chase there, right?
There is
an ocean chase.
Yes, at the end.
Okay. So I shot all that stuff from the helicopter.
Okay.
And I remember because I was asking the pilot. Because I wanted to follow it in, and I said, follow it in, and I'll undercrank it. But he followed right into the cliff. He got pretty close to the cliff, actually, which is a little bit scary.
Yeah, no, you see you can see the cliff in the shot when the boat explodes, like almost like the helicopter is almost right above the explosion, or at least slightly to the left of it. You're not very far away from the explosion.
No, and in those days you'd have a mount with the camera, and you're actually hanging off the side of the helicopter. I mean, today they have the gyro mounts on the front and the back, and the cameraman does not hang out of the helicopter like we did in the old days. So but that was actually my brother-in-law that flew that plane. So.
And was there something about you yourself, or you and Joseph, or just that had that thrill nature, that sort of thrill-seeking nature, or was it just like we've gone so far now with these action films, if we don't get to this point where I'm hanging off a helicopter above an explosion, we're not going to take our films to the next level, so let's just suck it up and get it done? Like, what kind of mindset brought stuff like that about in either in you and Joseph or in your crew and cast?
I think in general, you sort of have to outdo yourself, as you go forward. And I did enjoy being involved in the action stuff. That was probably, I enjoyed it. I just, like I said, you had the best job in the world because you get a bunch of toy cars and talk about the chase and how it's going to go, and this car is going to flip over, and then in a week I get to go out and do it. So it's it was fun. I think that separated Joe a little bit from me. I was more of the technical guy. Joe was a little more of the writing and directing, and I kind of made sure the films got put together, that anything that we shot could end up being a film,
Yeah.
So, which is a lot of reasons why I shot for guest directors, just so I could be on set all the time.
Of course, of course.
And make sure I'm covered. Make sure I'm covered.
And so to the sort of legacy now of PM Entertainment, just while we kind of wrap it up, obviously you did do films outside of action films. You did some family-friendly films, right. And you interestingly sort of tried to do sort of a martial arts family kind of crossover in some things. You've obviously done some thrillers, comedies in there, things like that. Did you sort of wish that you could have branched out more, or were you just, I love that people keep wanting the action from us?
Well, the action was our bread and butter. I think one of the only mistakes I think we made is we didn't get more involved in television towards the end. I think we should have. We kind of missed the golden age of TV, and we tried with LA Heat. We tried with we tried another action show that we couldn't get off the ground, but I'm not sure how we would have done it. But I think we missed the boat on getting into a lot of TV with Netflix and
yeah. You were sort of right between what I think of kind of the golden age of American television, just growing up in the UK, which sort of started with things like Hulk and Wonder Woman and ended with like Baywatch was sort of the last big kind of Saturday afternoon, 45-minute long kind of action comedy show that I think of that run that includes like the A-Team and Dukes of Hazzard and Knight Rider and those kind of shows. And then, there's a bit of a gap then of about 10 years, and then you start to get kind of the streaming stuff, the Netflix stuff.
Right.
Was there any talk kind of when this new paradigm emerged and this new sort of opportunity emerged? Was there any talk of you and Joe kind of resurrecting a little bit or going back into it? Or once you were done, you were kind of happy you were done?
Well, once we were done, I kind of was a little burned out, and I think Joe was too. But by the time we sold the company, it was pretty intense 10, 12 years. So I think we were kind of done. I did some other stuff before, but after that, but wasn't quite the same. I've never really had a real job in my whole life, so it was hard to work for anybody or even think about working for anybody. So I just sort of, I don't think we could have resurrected it. And Joe got busy. He stayed in the film business more than me, and he turned into a developer too. He's done really well. So he's done really well.
And are there any sort of moments or particular films from PM Entertainment catalog that, as people have spoken to you over the years about PM Entertainment, that you're kind of like, I wish someone would bring this up? Is there something that you feel was sort of underrated or didn't necessarily get the recognition it deserved that you produced that you would like to tell people now, with the opportunity of them to be able to go on streaming or pick up a DVD or whatever, that you would love to see that people don't mention?
Well, I think I always hear about some of the films becoming kind of cult. You know, a lot of the Wings Hauser films maybe have become, you know, cult films. I think Dark Breed, somebody told me once that it has a big following somewhere. I don't know if it's in Germany or whatever, but yeah, I like those films. I like Dark Breed. I mean,
I
that was
just
the
picked
one
it up on VHS. I have it waiting to watch.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that is an interesting because we hired a very tall guy to be the monster, right? And it kept getting delayed where I couldn't see the monster suit.
Yeah.
It kept getting delayed. The guys had problems, and then we had to go. We had to shoot because I think Jack had a schedule conflict. We had to shoot. So the first day I saw that suit was on set, and I decided this is not going to work. You know, it looks like a guy in a suit.
Right.
So what I did is I stole from Alien, and I just didn't show the monster till the very end.
Right.
And it worked out well for me, but I was sort of forced into that because it just didn't look good, and I couldn't stop shooting.
Right.
I had to. It was kind of the PN formula. Once you start, you got to get it done, and whatever happens, you have to get it done. So, yeah, I did a lot of slow dolly shots to the inside of this factory that transitioned between scenes. It worked out really well. I really liked how it turned out, especially with the problems. Yeah.
And there's some makeup effects and things in that movie. Just judging by sort of the back of the VHS cassette, I think Jonathan Banks has some makeup effects on him and stuff like that. Obviously, outside of the explosions and things we talked about, the other facets of kind of creative and technical filmmaking is things like blood effects and makeup effects and alien effects and things like that. Were you equally enamored and excited about that kind of stuff as you were about the car ramps and blowing stuff up and all that kind of stuff? Or was the action more your thing?
Yeah, the action was always the most fun for me. I was interested in the effects. I mean, the first in Dark Breed, it's the first time we had really computer effects where the faces would change.
Yeah.
And I was shocked that they could do that well. And because I thought we were going to have to do it with makeup transitioning into the monster, but we did it with computer effects, which really worked out well. But it was a different deal too. I had to lock the camera down; it couldn't move.
Yeah.
And the actor, you didn't want him to move a lot, but because that was the very beginning of those computer effects. So.
You mentioned Germany there, and I happen to know, just because of some Facebook groups I'm in, that, and your movies have had, Echo Bridge and Mill Creek have put some of them out on DVD, especially on kind of compilations. Right. Obviously, you can still find the VHS floating around on eBay or in different sort of indie video stores that still kind of crop up around the country. But, Germany especially have been sort of releasing quite a few action hits, not just PM Entertainment, but quite a few of those 80s and 90s action things. And there seems to genuinely be an audience out there. Are you involved at all? Because there's a company out there, Focus Media, I think, who are putting out some media books. I think they've done Ring of Fire 1, 2, and 3. I think they're doing Guardian Angel and Dark Breed at the moment. They claim to have sort of remastered them and are working with the original film negatives and things like that. Is that something you're aware of? Is that something you're involved in? Were the films sold off, and therefore you don't have to be asked about that stuff? What do you know anything about that?
We sold the rights to the film in 2000. We sold the whole company, so I haven't been involved in that. I mean, Joe may have, but I have not been involved in that.
Okay,
I've had a couple of calls, people who wanted to talk, but they all seem to be, I don't know, they just didn't seem that serious. Like, where is this going to go? Is this going to be part of a podcast, or do you have plans for anything?
I do have plans. So my initial plan was, first of all, to see if there was any interest from the people behind the scenes, right? So finding out to see if you and Joe and others were interested in talking. So it was getting as many of you guys on tape, first of all. My idea is to sort of put together an audio documentary. I know that a friend of mine, weirdly enough, Joe Yannick, some years ago did a very short for his blog, an oral history of PM Entertainment. I think he interviewed Joe and Richard Munchkin and Don Wilson and a couple of others. But that blog has since been taken down, and there really isn't anything online that I feel is a kind of quintessential documentation of PM. So my idea was to initially do it as an audio documentary because I'm already set up for that as a podcaster, as a film website owner. I was already set up for that. If there's more interest in that, and I hope there is, if there's more interest in that, my idea will then be, okay, well, let's see if we can't get some funding together to maybe film a documentary. That would be my ultimate goal, would be to actually film something. Okay. So I want to use this as a for my own gratification, but secondly, to put it out to an audience and say, look, I've got all these people on tape. This is a fantastic audio documentary, but wouldn't you rather it be filmed? Wouldn't you rather be able to kind of license some clips of the movies and really sort of get into it and do kind of what Mark Hartley did with Roger Corman and the Machete Maidens Unleashed documentary, and then what he did with his Canon documentary, although I'm not a huge fan of that because seemingly everyone he interviews in that is very negative about it. And I'm like, if I'm a fan of Canon, I want to hear people talking positively about it. Even if there's some bad stories, I don't mind hearing bad stories. There's always negative things that happen. But in general, I don't want just people crapping on Canon. I want to hear good things, but I'd like to do something like that ultimately. There was a documentary recently done called, I think, The Last Ever Action Heroes or something like that, but that seemed to use archival footage more than it used new interviews. Okay. So I don't know. I'm hoping that once we got you on the record, we get Joe on the record, and then obviously my immediate connections with Don and Cynthia and others, get them talking. But that's my hope, man. My hope would be to put something together that at least audibly you could sit and listen to for like a couple of hours and cover PM Entertainment, and then use it maybe as a fundraising device to be able to actually film stuff. Okay. Rick, thank you for giving of your time today. This has been fantastic. I really love the work you did. I want to be genuine. These movies are, I think, not just a time capsule, but also in this world of ramped up CGI and bloated budgets. I think they really stand as an inspiration to a time when stuff like that could get done for real, practically, and involve incredible skill, craftsmen, and also everything we've talked about, that kind of guerrilla, gung-ho, lean me out of a helicopter, let's get it done kind of spirit. So I want to thank you for that as an independent film fan. It really was terrific. And if you have any last words you want to say about PM Entertainment, what you think its legacy is, what you hope people discover it, keep rediscovering it, etc., please say it now, and then we can wrap up.
Okay. Well, I'm not sure there's it used to be when we were at our peak that I could turn on TV and our films were showing on some cable station. Something. It was, whether it's TNT, and over the years you see less and less. I'm not sure I see them anymore. They could come back, but there seemed like there was a while there that every time I turn on HBO or something, one of our shows was running.
Yeah.
So it was. You
had a deal with HBO early on,
right? We did have a deal with HBO, and that's one of the things that changed in the business too. We used to supply HBO for their Action Thursdays, and then they started doing their own stuff, and that was a big deal because I think we were getting in the neighborhood of 900,000 for a premiere at one time. So and that closed. So again, it's probably we should have gotten more into television and cable, but we didn't. But that's another story.
Well, what you did was fantastic. Thank you so much.
Okay, great.
All right. Thanks, Rick.
Touch bases later. Talk. Bye.
Bye now. Still an absolutely lovely conversation, and I'm so glad we were able to share that with you. Okay, so coming up after a few commercials, it will be a very recent interview that I did with Joseph Merhi, where we talk about all sorts of wonderful things. I think you're really, really going to enjoy it. And as always, if you've been enjoying these podcasts, please, please, please rate and review us. You can support us by sharing all our stuff on socials. And obviously, if you want to reach out, you can via our email, pmentpod, that's pmentpod @gmail.com, or leave us a voicemail at 347-669-0009. 0053. Please do rate and review us and share our stuff on social. It's free and it's the best way to support the show. We just won't get any bigger without it. So thanks so much. All right, Joe. Thank you for doing this again.
No problem.
I take it you're heading out to the memorial tomorrow?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Actually, they were expecting maybe 100 people, but now it's like maybe 150 or more.
Wow.
That people are coming. Yeah.
Wow, that's wonderful that so many people are showing up and remembering Rick. And it's just such a shock, such a surprise, because I think no one saw it coming. He seemed to be in such good health and, happy and everything. So I don't know.
Yeah, he's been retired literally for 25 years and all he did, he was very active playing tennis, golf, he'd drive across country. He will take his bus to Alaska and stay there for 2 months. He's extremely active. He's always been in a good health and very strong, being in the movie business and being a cameraman, you kind of have to slip and, pick up your cameras and gear and so on. And he had a stamina. I mean, he was working, he was very physical. His work was physical. And like when I will be directing, I'm the one who will get tired before he gets tired.
Yeah.
We'll go 12 hours, 14 hours, 16 hours, and he's still, happy and chipper and, and let's do it. Let's keep doing it. He was amazing.
Yeah. And what do you think you first, like when you were all sort of putting together City Lights and you'd met in Vegas and you were sort of thinking about doing this properly, what was it about Rick, or what was the discussion about you two in particular? Because I know you had other people you were working with, like Richard Munchkin you were working with and Paul Volk and stuff. What was it about you and Rick that made you say, let's us be the team, let's us be the producers?
Well, it's funny you asked, because before City Light, I made a movie called Hollywood in Trouble, which is a stupid little comedy.
Yeah.
That I put $50,000 together, and I decided to do this movie. Just, I'm a pizza guy in Las Vegas. I've owned a couple of pizzerias and, worked my way up, and I wanted to be in the movie business. Of course, I don't think anybody will ever hire me, so I decided to make a movie. So when I decided to make the movie, I wrote the script, which is, and wanted to produce it, direct it, and I'm looking for a cameraman now. So I put the words out, and Rick showed up along with 2 other people, not at the same time. I interviewed 3 different cameramen. And Rick was, extremely presentable. He had his truck, he had his gear with him. He told me he owns a 16 millimeter camera that he will let me use for free if I was to choose him and work with him. He was anxious to shoot this movie with me, and of course he was the most experienced one, much more experienced than I am. I had no clue what to do practically.
Yeah.
And So I hired him. I hired him because he had an incredible attitude. And, we read the script, we talked about it, we talked about different locations, and he was never, he never took for granted or showed the crew or everybody else, well, I know more than the director, which is he did.
Right.
Except, he's been on many sets before, and then the very first day we worked, I had no clue that the crew works. It's a 12-hour shift. When you work in the movies, yeah. I thought it was like any other job, 8 hours. So after 8 hours, I said, "Okay, Rick, we're done. Thank you so much." He goes, "Woo, what do you mean we're done?" I said, "Well, it's been 8 hours." He goes, No. We work 12 hours. Now, the other people, they already said, "Oh, thank you, goodbye." He said, "Wait a minute, don't go anywhere, guys. Come back. So Rick protected me.
Yeah.
Otherwise it would have taken me much longer to shoot the movie, probably gone over budget or so on. So now, and he was very sympathetic toward, if I say something that doesn't match, or I want to place the camera in the place, and he said, if you want it this way, it's fine, but I think it needs to be that way. So, I love that about him. And then to go further than that, we finished the movie. I went into editing, and he had other jobs. And he will call me every 2 days, 3 days. How is it going? Is there anything I can do? Let me help you. And then he helped me with post-production. Either he comes over or just call me on the phone. So it was obvious that when I decided, okay, this is what I'm going to do, because what happened with me, I finished the movie and I took it to the major studios. Of course, back then, if you have a movie finished, because it's all on film, it's difficult to finish a movie. So the studio, no matter who you are, if you say, I have a movie, you say, well, come on over, let's screen it. And they screened it for me. And, in 20th Century Fox, I went to Paramount Picture. Everybody looked at it. Of course, they turned it off after 10 minutes. Said, oh, this is not good. It's not commercial. It's not something that we'll want. But just in case you made a good movie, like Crocodile Dundee, he made a movie, and that movie, I don't know, grossed 60, 70, $80 million.
Right.
So, but with mine, I realized very quickly I shouldn't do comedies. When I took it to MeFed, and in MeFed, I was encouraged by my distributors. I start meeting with different distributors, and they say, you know what, you have an eye. I think you can make a movie, but make an action movie or a horror movie. We cannot sell this. So when I went back and we start raising money, I said to Rick, I'm going to raise $250,000 and make 4 more movies. And he said, well, you want a partner? I said, yes, let's go. We're 50-50 partners. So that's how it started, because of his kindness and his approach to, work, and loved making movies, loved photography. And he was like the nicest man. He was unbelievably great. And we worked together side by side for 20 years and never had a shouting match or an argument. Paul Boak stayed with us the whole time. And Paul, the first one who called me immediately when he passed. Yeah. And then Shelley, his wife, called me. And Paul, the very first thing he said to me, he said, I work with you guys every single day. And you guys never had an argument. This is unbelievable. Never disagree, We respected each other. I listened to what he has to say. I told him what I have in mind, and they said, "Okay, fine, let's do this." And that's it. It was amazing.
Yeah, and what did a day like when you guys weren't shooting a movie, when you weren't directing, and when he wasn't necessarily shooting something, but you were still in the office? What was your and maybe thinking about ideas or thinking about trends you might want to follow or something like that? Kind of what was a day-to-day looking like for sort of PM Entertainment and just sort of the running of the business with the two of you?
Well, it so happened that we never sat down and divided who's going to do what. But since I went to Europe, to MeFed and Cannes Film Festival and so on, it was like understood it was for me to go ahead and try to find out distribution, sales, because he was really good at production, post-production, running the office. So we've had lunch at least 2-3 times a week when we were not shooting. We were at the office, and that's another. I just said to my wife, I said, "My God, he would order a salad to start." I hated salad. I didn't want to eat salad. He never ate his meal without a salad before.
Yeah.
And he will drink iced tea with no sugar, with lemon. So he was much healthier eater than I was.
Yeah.
And he was very, very aware of, he loved his tea, didn't drink much coffee. He loved, he makes his tea, with honey and lemon sometimes. And so we talked about, for example, we made a little movie called Night of the Wilding.
Yeah.
Night of the Wilding. I read an article that this group of people attacked this woman or something. I said, Rick, what about if we do this? Let's go to New York and do it. We've never shot a movie in New York. And he goes, well, how much do you think we'll spend on it? I said, I don't know, maybe we'll spend $75,000, $100,000. Okay, let's do that. So that's how it all started. Joe Hart, the one Jacob Hart, I think he called it. He wrote a movie called Hitman, I think. And Joe approached me and he said, I have an idea for a movie. And I said, go ahead and tell it to me. He goes, now? I said, yeah. As we're climbing up the stairs, he tells me about, this hitman. He has his last job where he has to kill this woman because she had an affair with a congressman or something. And that was his last job before he retired. And the guy goes to kill her. He finds out she has a 7-year-old daughter and decided not to kill her. And then they were on the run where everybody else wanted to kill her. So, and I said, okay, we'll do it. So I tell Rick, this is what we're doing. He said, great, who's going to write the script, when we're going to do it, how we're going to shoot it. It was a very, very, very casual situation, between us. And, the action became also like our mark or our, to make, great action. Because when I went the first time to Europe and tried to sell a comedy, I couldn't. So we decided we want to go into the action genre and we want to have great action.
Yeah.
And Rick loved the action sequences and setting up in different places. I tell you, I never seen Rick tired or saying, I got to go home now, I'm so tired or something. He was just full of energy.
Yeah. And I think when we were talking with the Steel Frontier directors, they were saying, because I think both Rick and Ken Blakey, your other regular cinematographer, worked on that movie, and they would just swap between who was doing the stunt work, the second unit crew, and who was doing the first unit crew. Like they just would, whenever they wanted to do whatever they wanted to do, Rick would be, I want to shoot this bit, or Ken would be like, I'd like to shoot this, but they would just swap off, and everything seemed very collaborative. It seems like Rick shared your love of collaboration and your love of, if the caterer has a good idea, the caterer can write a script. Like he seemed very amenable and open to that. Is that correct?
100%. Actually, our biggest find, and you should talk to, is Ken Blakey. Ken shot, I don't know, 70, 80, 100, I don't know how many movies.
Yeah.
And Ken was the most amazing. Him and Rick were cinematographers, and Ken came from San Francisco, and he looked up Rick, and Rick said, I don't have anything for you. I shoot everything. And Ken is very polite and very nice. And he goes, well, maybe I can light for you. And Rick at the time said, what do you think? Should we bring this guy to light? And I said, yeah, let's try. It'll take something off of your plate, because Rick was doing both.
Yeah.
And the guy came in, and Ken has the most amazing personality, just like Rick, and just at ease, everything like easy with Ken. Actually, if you talk to him, I was directing a movie, I don't know which one now. He tells the story, and he goes, we're like shooting all night. It's 3:00 in the morning, and I said, Ken, I need a scene. I need like a flashback to Vietnam, because the guy was in Vietnam. I got just a flashback for like 5-6 seconds. And he goes, Vietnam? Where the hell are we going to shoot Vietnam? And it was like one little tree, one little tree just sitting like in the middle of a park. Yeah. And I said, there, Ken, that's your Vietnam. Make it work. I can tell this story all the time. That's your Vietnam.
Yeah. Make that part work. Yeah.
Yeah. So we had, we had a few actors. They couldn't even stand up because there's a bathroom behind them or something. So we have to shoot it. We have to shoot it where they're down, like very, very aware of the bombs going next to them and the nightmarish of Vietnam. And we did it. He goes, so he always say, Joe said, that's your Vietnam. Make it happen. You got half an hour to do it.
Yeah. It's remarkable the people you assembled around you, Joe, that were so able to run with your ideas, because your ideas seem to come from Jacobson Hart. Whenever I talk to him, and Joe and I have talked quite a few times now since starting the show, and we're friends on Facebook and things. He always says that it was sort of you that came to him with ideas, and then he would kind of flesh them out and write them, and then come back to you, and you would. It seems to me like ideas come very thick and fast to you. So it's incredible that you had these people around you that were so quick-footed. They could always move wherever you wanted to go and figure it out, it seems.
Well, he's absolutely right, because we were all a bunch of, literally, we're not kids, but like kids in a candy store, We're all anxious to make a movie. They want to make a movie. We want to be on the set. Everybody loves to be it. So we're constantly thinking about what is the next movie, because the next movie has to be next month. I took my wife to see a movie one day, and back, I don't know, 25 years ago, 30 years ago, and I'm sitting with her in the movie, and they're showing the trailers, and one of the detective goes, "Oh, we have a zero tolerance policy."
Yeah.
I said, "Zero tolerance? What a great title. Zero tolerance." I said, "I'll be back." I went to the lobby. I borrowed a pen and papers. And she came out like an hour later. She said, "What the hell? Where'd you go?" And I wrote 18 pages on zero tolerance, which is Robert Patrick's. It started in the movie. Yeah. 2 months later, we were shooting with Robert Patrick. It was like that all the time. Like somebody will say, let's do a movie on what, this or that, or okay, let's do it. How are we gonna? Then we build the movie around it. Another person you should talk to is Charlie Kinganis. Charlie Kinganis and and now I forget the name. We made over 100 movies. So, but I remember Charlie tell the story. It was an idea, and I said, "We need to write the script." He said, "Oh, okay." I said, "What are you doing this weekend?" He said, "Why?" I said, "We need to write the script this weekend." So we sat, Charlie and I, and it was a typewriters back then, and I can't type, and we fleshed out a movie.
Yeah.
The script.
No,
and many times,
it's fantastic.
Many times I made a movie, I think, called Rage.
Yeah, with Gary Daniels.
With Gary Daniels, and I handed to my line producer at the time, and she said, "This is 60 pages. We need 80, 85. I said, yeah. The rest will come. Don't worry about it. Let's just start.
Spiro will fill the rest up with truck chases and
exactly
skyscraper action scenes and things.
Exactly. And with Rage, we had another big action at the end, and we were in a mall. Yeah. In a mall, and I said, "Oh shit, let's just finish it now. We're not going to do another action. Let's just finish." So we killed the rest of 2 days later. We had more action sequences, and I said, "Enough. We got enough. Let's just finish the movie." And
it's now one of your most, especially amongst the action fandom and action fan base, it's probably your most well-loved and successful movie, Rages.
Yeah, and we made it up. It was just made up, literally. Yeah. And in that, it was in Long Beach. There's an indoor shopping center in Long Beach. I go to talk to the manager, and he was a movie buff. He wanted to, he himself wanted to be an actor or something. So I told him about it. He goes, "Yeah, I got to run it by corporate." I said, "No, they're going to, they just shoot it. Corporate is going to pay." He said, "No, man, I get fired." I said, "If you get fired, I'll hire you. You're not going to get fired." So he let us shoot. He said, "From what time?" I said, "Before the people come, like from 8 o'clock in the morning, we'll shoot like 3-4 hours." So then we went over, and Gary was jumping from balcony to down. We're doing all these huge, crazy stunts. Then I said, the guy's name was Jim. I said, Jim, we have to shoot some guns. And right now the mall is open. The shopping center is open. It's open. He goes, I said, it's fake. You just make a little sound. Now we had machine guns and we had guns and he goes, oh, okay, man, go ahead and do it. I said, okay, thanks. Okay. Then all of a sudden, no warning, nothing, because we want the extras in the back. We start firing guns.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So one of the things I've noticed, Joseph, to talk about Rick, was that a lot of the ones he directed, because obviously he shot a ton and obviously produced all of them, but he directed, I think, about 15 out of the regular PM run, and they all seem to be, or a lot of them seem to be more on the sci-fi side of things. So whether it's Cybertracker or The Send or whatever. So I'm presuming Rick loved science fiction, and that was one of the things.
He loved sci-fi, yes, which is I hated. I couldn't do one. I like practical stories or real stories.
Yeah.
So one day he told me, why don't we do this? I said I don't want to do this. He said, okay, then I'll do it. I said, you want to direct it? He goes, yeah. I said, great. And it started that's how it started.
Yeah, because I think he did, Cybertracker 1 and 2, Darkbreed with Jack Scalia, and The Sender with Michael Madsen, and a few of them. And then, of course, Y2K, and they all sort of have a sci-fi side to them. And what's always interesting, I think, is when PM does something a little different to just the action films, even if it's a sci-fi action film or a Bigfoot action film or a whatever it is, when you kind of go off and do something that's a little different to a regular PM film like Rage, I think it always adds that extra interest for the audience, because you get kind of a different genre, but you still get all the action.
Yes. Yeah, he did a great job with that genre, which is, I really don't get. I don't like the sci-fi, to be honest.
No, but that was Rick's thing. And it seemed that the way PM was, if Rick was like, well, I'm going to direct this one, or, well, this is the one I want to do, he could just go away and do it. And it was fine. For you, it was just the more movies, the better kind of thing.
Well, I mean, he was 50-50 partners with me. Yeah. He has a say, as well. And I respected him so much that if he said, I want to do this, I said, good, have fun with it. Let's do it. And I supported it in every way. And sometimes I will work like a second unit on some of these. He will say to me, I need you to shoot this shot I missed or something, or can you come and do that one? Or, and of course, I was there. I go and do it for him. It's our movie. It's our company. So that's how it worked. And, I don't know, people know, the crew knows that Rick has an incredible dry sense of humor. Incredible dry sense of humor.
Yeah.
And he makes fun. Okay, for example, when we started, were we gonna make our first or second movie, and Rick was a reader. He read the newspapers, and he reads Variety or Hollywood Reporter, and we're in this little rundown office. We have a little warehouse so we can house the equipment or something. We're making our first or second 16 millimeter. And he had his foot on the desk and he's reading Variety. And he said to me, can you believe this? I said, what is it? He goes, Michael Eisner, Disney just gave him $15 million bonus. $15 million. When are we going to make that kind of money? I mean, we run the Mickey Mouse company.
That's fantastic. That's a great line.
And he had 100 of those.
Yeah.
100 of those. He was, one time we're setting up and so on, and one of the grip is in between shots, just sitting on the floor, and he's cutting his fingernails, and he's working on his fingernails. We're waiting, And the guy's name's Jared. I said, Jared, I saw her grow out. Is that your girlfriend? And Rick said, no, that's not his girlfriend. He's giving a manicure to his girlfriend right now. I mean, he had hundreds of these, things that he will say, very dry humor.
Yeah.
But it was very, very funny.
Well, the Canadians are known for having a great sense of humor.
Yeah.
The Canadians have a great sense of humor, so that's always good to know. And the other thing, I guess, Joseph, that really stands out with us who watch the films, as you know, a lot of them are being released now on Blu-ray out of Switzerland, and
right.
I've been watching a ton of them that get sent to me. And what the Blu-rays have really allowed me to do in a way that I didn't think I'd ever be able to do is just see Rick and Ken's cinematography in such a lush, rich way. And the fact that watching some of these, it's on Blu-ray, you really go, oh my goodness. And I think what sets PM apart is sort of what we call that sort of PM look. Do you remember a lot of discussion about sort of the look of things or whatever? Or was it just something that Ken and Rick, having worked together so closely, kind of just had a shorthand and came up with instinctively? Or was there genuinely a feel of, we have to make this look a bit more cinematic, we have to do the long lenses, the deep blur in the background, all the stuff that I see now when I'm watching the Blu-ray, and I go, my goodness, Rick could shoot the hell out of the film.
Well, you know what? It's like, growing in your own home, and your mother is an incredible cook, and you eat and you take it for granted, and you think that's the norm. Anywhere you go, it's going to be incredible food. Yeah. Well, I didn't know anything but Rick and Ken, and these guys, so underrated. That, I mean, they do miracle in 15 minutes.
Yeah.
In 15 minutes, half an hour, see miracles. I mean, and they make it look so incredible. I took it for granted till I start working, for other people. I work as a consultant after we sold PM. And then I see, I worked on $50 million movie, the whole 10 yards.
Yeah.
I did other movies, I worked on Jason Statham, movie. And I see these people who are getting tons of money, director of photographies or producers, and they don't know shit. I mean, they don't know anything. I'm sorry to say this word.
No, it's fine.
They know very, very little about, they have budget of 30 million, 20 million, 40 million. And what they do is takes forever. I was going nuts. I was going crazy.
Yeah.
Even like a little hit in Vancouver, they had just one car hitting another car. It's like 6 meetings and safety meeting, which is I am all for. You need the safety meetings. You need to make sure nobody gets hurt. And then you see the car. It's like my grandmother hit the car. It dented it, and it's like, are you kidding me? This is what happened after 3 hours of meetings and safety. And it's like
you were like we
used to do.
Let's get Spiro or Cole S. McKay on the phone and have them come up and do it in 10 minutes.
Oh my God! Oh my God! We did the movie. I forget which one, but we lost the location one time. We have a chase and cars and so on, and Spiro, and we lost it. We couldn't do it. The permit wasn't right, and we're parked in the parking lot. I think it's the longest action sequence, I think, parking lot or a warehouse. I said, Spiro, you're doing the chase scene indoor in the warehouse. I think it was a warehouse. I forget the name of the movie.
There's a few that have parking lot chases, but I don't know which one Spiro did.
And we did one where at the end, I think this particular one was like 6-story parking lot, and at the end, Gary Daniels goes out the 4-story, a car goes down below. And
that's Riot.
There's is it Riot?
That's Riot. Yeah, they just released that on Blu-ray. That looks incredible on Blu-ray. Ken's night shooting on Riot, I presume that was the Paramount stages or something where you filmed some of
Paramount.
that?
Yes, Paramount.
Ken's cinematography on that film, especially at night, Ken seemed really good at nighttime photography, but that movie looks incredible now on Blu-ray. And that sequence where Gary Daniels lights a motorbike guy on fire, and while still on fire, he gets back on the motorbike and chases Gary Daniels down the street, only to obviously hit a car, explode, and go flying over the car, all while still on fire. I think my jaw didn't leave the floor for 10 minutes. I was like, that's amazing.
And we've never had one green screen shot. We don't know anything about computers. We never had computerized. Everything you see is real, 100% real.
Yeah.
It's amazing. So I took all this guy's effort and talent for granted. I thought, oh, everybody does that. It's like your mom, cooking is great. Yeah. Then you go and say, wait a minute. I took her for granted because food is not always great. Well, Rick and Ken's photography and the time that they do it, like I will say, we need Rick or Ken. I said, we need to shoot this. And, he said, okay, well, we need like half an hour. Half an hour? Come on, guys.
Yeah.
We were shooting zero tolerance in an insurance company where they had like 500 desks, and I wanted that look as the FBI headquarters or something.
Yeah.
And so we rented it and we're shooting, and somebody came to me and said, there's a crew from Paramount looking at the same location. Can they go through, at lunch? I said, of course. Now this is a huge warehouse with 500 desks or something.
Yeah.
And now I hear the director, and I hear he said, we can't shoot it in 2 days. They're talking. I'm like, I'm eavesdropping. He said, we need to relight. We need to light this place. You need a couple of days. I said, excuse me, because yes, I said, this is an office, right? Why do you need 2 days to? I'm just curious. Why do you need 2 days to light it? He said, we turn all the fluorescent lights off, and we have big lights, and I said, but it already lit and looks like an office. I said, do you want to see some of the stuff we shot on this? And they looked at each other like, the studio don't think like this. They think, the director of photography thinks I'm going to give it a special look, turn everything off. They need 2 days just to light it. Well, they're not going to get 2 days to light it, then they can't shoot. They're not going to shut down this place. And they said, so what do you suggest? I said, keep the fucking lights on and shoot. That's it.
Oh, man.
They get $40 million budget.
Yeah.
And they figure out how they can waste it.
Yeah, no, it is remarkable, Joseph. And again, just, because we've been talking a lot about amongst us fans, but also amongst the sort of the PM Entertainment people who I've been speaking to now for the last few months and who have become just very close and supportive of the show and everything like that. First of all, the team you had around you, the people you had working for you, that they are this lovely and supportive and communicative to someone like myself trying to just put together a show. That is a testament to the people you had working for you. Just fantastic people. I've not had one bad experience really trying. Once I got hold of people, it's been difficult sometimes getting hold of people. Once you get hold of people, I've not had one bad experience. And then the other thing, we've been talking a lot about Rick's legacy. And it is truly remarkable what you guys were able to achieve. I'm not just saying this because I'm some guy who likes action movies. I love all movies. I love Kubrick movies and, Francis Ford Coppola movies and Jim Jarmusch movies. It's, I watch all sorts of things. And, what you were able to achieve on the budgets you had with the time that you had was truly incredible and deserves reimagining and rediscovering and celebrating. I guess the only question I have left then about sort of you and Rick is more to say, when you sold PM and sort of walked away from it a little bit, What were those few months after that? Did you guys talk about, I don't know, pivoting and doing movies in a different way? Did you guys talk about the legacy of PM? Have you guys talked in the last 20 years about sort of the legacy that you guys have created, or whether there was any interest in it? Or sort of some of those conversations, if they even happened.
It did happen, but let me answer you about the crew. It's the same thing. The people who worked with us, it was exactly the same thing that Rick and Ken photography is taken for granted. You think this is the norm. This wasn't the norm. Right. And so I was pretty much, hiring, a lot of people myself. They come to me. And when you give people, when they say, what's your dream? Well, I want to write. What's your dream? I want to be a director of photography. What's your dream? John Kelly, who is, a very, very big producer now, makes all Sean Penn movies and different movies. He came to me and he said, I want to learn how to make movies. I said, what do you do now? He said, I'm an accountant. I said, are you a good accountant? He goes, I'm a very good accountant, but that's not what I want to do. I want to make movies. I said, okay, John, I'll make a deal with you. He said, what is it? I said, you work as an accountant for 1 year. So you know how much the camera rental cost, how much this guy makes, how much the location. You learn about this first from the money point of view. And I guarantee you, 1 year from now, you will be a producer in a movie. And totally forgot about it. 1 year to the day, I see John Kelly. You should look him up. Look at his credit. He has a huge credit. Makes big movies. Yeah. And John Kelly is in a suit. And I said, "What the hell?" And his big smile on his face. I said, "What's going on? Why are you in a suit?" He goes, "Because I'm ready to produce now." It's been 1 year. And I said, "Okay, John, you're a producer. A deal is a deal." So what I did, I really talked to these guys. Say, what is it you want to do? Well, I want to do this. I want to do that. We were open to any suggestions. So they felt heard. They felt that they can grow the company. They felt they can produce. They can do whatever they want. They can direct. Yeah. Art Camacho was, a fight coordinator. He said, "I want to direct." Okay, we'll give you a shot at directing. That's what it was so nice about. We were family. Yeah. I had two rules. At PM Entertainment with my crew. When I hired them, we did all these movies. We hired hundreds and hundreds of people. I think I fired 2 people. 2. Yeah. We never fire anybody. If I see you're not doing your job, I said, "John, you seems unhappy here. This is not good for the morale. We're going to give you 2 weeks, pay, go find another job." Right. And then John will say, I broke up with my girlfriend. I said, "Well, just talk to me. Just talk to us, just." So it was one thing, just personally, when I used to hire people, I said, "Don't lie to me. Don't lie to me, and don't steal from me. And we'll get along fine. Yeah. Just don't lie. If I tell you, if you dropped the lens and you broke $5,000 lens, just say, I broke it. Don't put it back in the bag. Then we discover it's broke. The rental house called, said, Joseph, I fucked up. I just dropped the fucking lens. Yeah. I'll deal with it. You're never going to get fired for that. Yeah. Because you didn't do it on purpose." So really I was very, very lucky to get all these incredible people that just, we couldn't do anything without these people. We owe everything to these people who worked for us and worked with us and became what they became. And it was like a school. It was like a school. Now, for everybody. We hired everybody not based on their experience, based on, that's what I want to do. And okay, welcome to let's do it. Yeah. And if you were on our set and you say, I don't know, we're waiting for something and we need an ashtray for the scene, 5 people will run and get an ashtray. It's not like we have to say that the PA go get an ashtray and we wait for him. We were a team. We were a family. Yeah. Now, in terms of after we sold PM Entertainment. Okay, before we sold PM, about a year earlier, I was totally fried. I wasn't doing my job. I wasn't really contributing anymore. I was completely out of it, you know.
Yeah.
And because here's something I didn't know again, and I didn't take into accounting that you need your vacation. You need to. I used to go to Europe, land, do the show, finish, get on the plane, come back, and while I'm there, I'm thinking of the next movie or meeting with somebody else.
Yeah.
So I was completely out of it. Completely. We could have sold it for a lot more money at one time. I just wanted out. So when I was out, I did not want to do any more movies. I did not want to do anything right now. And I just wanted to raise my family. My son was just born, and thank God we didn't have tons of money, but we have enough money to live nicely. And so Rick and I, we would talk. Rick bought like $250,000 a bus, beautiful bus. He started going to Alaska and different places. He bought a shopping center. He bought a couple of other things. And he said, that's it for me. I don't want to, I want to retire. I want to take it easy. Also worked extremely hard. So we will talk once in a while. And then out of the blue, I was approached to produce Rodney Dangerfield's movies. We did 2 movies for Rodney Dangerfield, small movies. And then when I was doing the whole 10 yards, I was in charge with the production, and they brought me in because the budget was like 52 million, 54 million. And they brought me in to say, you know what, we need to cut the budget $10 million.
Yeah.
We cannot cut Bruce Willis. He was getting 17,500,000.
Wow.
Okay, we can't cut, what's her name? She, I think 3 million, 2 million, 1 million. So I said, okay. And they were supposed to go to Canada. And I said, we can shoot it here, I just shoot it here. And I started cutting the budget, but I was in charge of the budget. I have a little bit of say.
Yeah.
Although people look at me like, what the hell you're doing here with a $50 million movie? You make a movie for $500,000. But the guy who was, the boss of the film, who called the shot, he knew how well we did with budgets and we can bring into the table. That's why they hired me, and they were paying me $35,000 a week.
Yeah.
Which is look like a lot of money, but it's not if you cut the budget to $2 million or $3 million. 10 weeks is only $350. Again, it's a lot of money.
Right.
But when you save the production $5 million, $7 million, whatever. So I called Rick and I said, Rick, why don't you come and DP the movie? The position pays $15,000 a week. It's going to be 10, 12 weeks. We'll have fun again. He said, oh, okay, thank you, man. And he got really excited about it. And literally a couple of hours later, he called me and said, Joseph, I don't want to do this. I'm done.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So he really he had a good head on his shoulder. He decided, this is it. They tried a little bit here and there and decided, you know what, let me enjoy my family. Let me enjoy and he loved his wife.
Yeah.
Shelley. He loved her. He was incredibly loyal, faithful. I don't think he's ever said no to her on anything. She's just, whatever.
Yeah.
That's the kind of person he was. He was really, what you see is what you get.
Yeah.
He was very, very beautiful, nice, faithful, great partner, and he will be very missed. Actually,
yeah.
The news. I mean, we weren't talking every day, or sometimes 2 months would go by without talking. But whenever we talked, we joke and we stayed on the phone for an hour. And I was so lucky that I had met him.
Yeah. And it's great that you stayed in touch all these years, and it wasn't you know, even though you didn't work together again, that it was still a friendship and a partnership that endured.
Yeah, one time he called me, maybe, I don't know, I think it was during COVID or just before COVID. He said, you know, we did LA Heat, the television series.
Yeah.
And he said, well, why don't we have like a gathering, a dinner, you know, call everybody. And where do you want to do it? I said, do it in my house. So they all came here and we had a nice dinner and kind of reflect a little bit. And you know, once in a while when we were talking, we always reflect about different movies, different ways, different things that happen. And we laugh, you know, and giggle about, you know, that time. And but he enjoyed his life, you know, he really did. He enjoyed every single day with his family. Yeah, he was hoping he will be here for another 15, 20 years.
Yeah. Lastly then, Joe, and thank you so much for your time today. It's been really, really wonderful and lots of great stories we can use. But lastly then, do you feel, especially with potentially the Blu-rays, meaning that there'll be more appreciation of the movies and the podcast and other stuff and more interest in this? And I know that my friend Corey is writing a book and things like that. Do you finally feel, and do you think that Rick and you were feeling kind of creatively complete as well? I know obviously you worked super hard on PM and you were both kind of burnt out and you didn't want to kind of go back to that. But now when you look back on it, do you feel creatively satisfied that you got to make all the things you wanted to make and tell all the stories you wanted to make, and just how you and Rick personally felt about creatively about what you achieved?
You know, John, you have to ask this question to my wife because she used to get so frustrated with me. So frustrated with me. She'll come to the set and she will be, oh, I can't believe you guys do this. I said, what? She goes, this. I said, Dahlia. Her name is Dahlia. I said, Dahlia, anybody can do this shit. What are we doing so special? It's nothing. Anybody. She goes, no, anybody can do this shit. And that's how we felt, to be honest with you. We never felt we're special at all. We never felt that we're creative. You know, we used to look at, you know, Pulp Fiction and say, oh my God, can you imagine us making a movie like this or something like this? This is the real art. So no, the answer to your question, I'm shocked now when people see the shows or the movies and they call me and say, oh my God, I can't believe you guys did this. So, but us doing it, we felt like we're a couple of peasants who never went to school, never went to film school, never did anything. And we're just, you know, we're just workers. We never felt superior or, you know, or creative or no, never.
Well, I think that what comes across then is the authenticity of that. I think there is something about that mindset where you're not thinking to yourself, you know, listen, I love Tarantino movies as much as the next film geek, but I think Tarantino sits down to himself and says, I'm amazing. I'm an artist. I'm going to do something that's going to revolutionize movies. And then we all watch them and we go, yeah, they're cool and everything, Quentin, but like, could you be less full of yourself, please? There's no authenticity to them. There's not the voice that he has in his movies is very samey. You know, once you've heard it once, the magic trick is revealed, and then it's just the same thing over and over again. I think with you guys just thinking, like being what I call like just workmanlike or just jobbing filmmakers or whatever you want to call it, there's an authenticity to that. And I think that you guys solved problems in an interesting way, because being a director is, or being a producer is 90% just solving problems or answering questions. And I think you guys solved problems and answered questions in an interesting way. But not only that, but you were backed up by this incredible wealth of talent that you had nurtured and supported, whether you thought of yourselves that way or not. You and Rick nurtured and supported an incredible school of talent that has gone on to become incredibly successful. And you gave opportunities to people that wouldn't have had opportunities otherwise, both in front of and behind the camera. And I know that in the world at large, Tarantino is the one that's going to get all the praise and the plaudits and the you know, people writing about him and stuff like that. But I don't know, for me and my fellow film fans and things like that, we'd much rather you and Rick any day of the week and twice on Sundays. Honestly, I'm not just saying that because you've been kind and generous to me, but I'm saying that because I genuinely mean it. There's a authenticity and a respect we have for your filmmaking that's different to the ones who go out on the red carpet and tell everyone how great they are. You know what I mean?
Thank you. Well, one time, I forgot the last name. Michael, the director who did Bad Boys, who did
Michael Bay.
Michael Bay. Okay, Michael Bay. So Spiro is doing Bad Boys with him or something. I don't know which movie he's doing.
I think he does Bad Boys too. I think
so. Yeah, Bad Boys too. So Spiro, I see him often. Every time we have a chance, he likes to play tennis and pickleball, and I do too. So we see him, and he goes, we're studying that scene we did with PM. We're going to do it in Bad Boys. And Michael, watch it like 10 times, and I show him, with the toy camera. I say, you're so full of shit. He goes, no, he wants to meet you. I say, you're so full of shit. So he said, I'm telling you, man. I said, oh, okay. And he invited me to the premiere, and Michael, walked by me, and he goes, Spiro goes, Michael, this is Joseph Merhi. He goes, oh my God. He goes, oh, it was very nice to meet you, sir. I said, oh, thank you. And he and Spiro said, tell him how we duplicate the scene. He goes, yeah, we watched it like 10, 15 times, and we looked at it, and I loved what you guys did, and I said, oh, okay, thank you. That's one time. What do you feel like? Oh, maybe we did something special.
Yeah.
But me and Rick, we always thought, honestly, we'd just grab a sandwich, he loved his beer once in a while when he finished, have a beer, have a tea, and we made fun of, us doing what we're doing. The guys we were always laughing and giggling, and it's, kids have the opportunity to go and play in the mud. Yeah. And that's what we were.
Well, you were fantastic at doing it, and talking about big Hollywood movies imitating you guys. I don't know for a fact that anyone did this, but you did two movies, Last Man Standing and Dark Breed, that both featured stunts where someone was being dragged behind like a truck or an armored vehicle on, I think in Last Man Standing, it's on bags of money. And the stuntman is like flying all around and stuff on bags of money on a long chain hanging off the back of the armored vehicle. And in Dark Breed, he's on a satellite dish. Jack Skillier's character's on a satellite dish being dragged behind a car. Both those movies were made about 2.5 years before Lethal Weapon 4 comes out. And in Lethal Weapon 4, Mel Gibson's character is literally being dragged behind a truck, holding on a upturned table, a four-legged table, holding on to plastic, being dragged behind a truck. And it's a PM gag through and through. It looks like PM. It's shot like PM. It has the same kind of stunts as PM. So I've got to believe that if one of your stunt guys didn't work on Lethal Weapon 4, one of your stunt guys told someone who worked on Lethal Weapon 4 how to do the stunt, because it's okay. Picture to picture exactly the same as Last Man Standing.
The stuntman who did this, his name is Denny Pierce.
Yeah.
Denny and I and my wife and his girlfriend had dinner last night, and Denny was telling my wife how I fired Spiro 2-3 times, and how Joe was arguing with Spiro about when he told him he's going to go 55 miles an hour, okay?
Yeah.
On the Long Beach freeway.
Yeah.
And he's gonna head the armored truck, and he's gonna jump inside.
Yeah.
And I said to Spiro, "You're out of your mind." And he said, "There's no way we're gonna do this. You're gonna kill this guy. No way." And then he's next to me, and Spiro said, "He wants to do it. He knows what he's doing. He wants to do it." And I said, "No, he doesn't want to do it. You told him to do it, so he's going to say, yeah, I can do it." I said, "Then you don't have to do this." He goes, no, I want to do it. I said, "Denny, you don't have to do this. I don't want to do this, Spiro." He goes, "We already set it up, man." And Spiro, if he has something in mind, by the way, he's a genius.
Yeah.
I mean, he made, he's a genius. He knows if he can tell a story, he'll be the greatest director ever.
Yeah.
But Spiro said, no, we're doing it. We're doing it. And it's just, I couldn't even dare to look at it. I couldn't believe this guy's going to go. He has to go 55 miles an hour. The truck has to go 53 miles an hour at one point when he hits it directly. And he's going to hit it and go into the back of the truck and fight with these two guys. Then they throw him out again. I said, Denny, you're out of your goddamn mind. I mean, we were talking about this last night.
Yeah.
We were talking about this last night.
That's incredible.
Like, you know.
Yeah.
It's, okay, well,
it inspired,
my friend.
It inspired a lot. Well, Joe, thank you so much, sir. You've been a real pleasure again to speak to.
You are now leaving the PM Entertainment Podcast.